There's a lot of competition. You
Yeah.
really have to sort of be on the top of your game to get in. Law is a lucrative profession. Plus, not to mention that LinkedIn, because in a way it's structured like a CV, and if you keep it updated, you've got a backup of your CV. There's a fine line between academia and what happens in practice. If you've got your objectives clear,
Yeah.
I think there are a variety of ways to achieve them. Because the thing is, the first step of the ladder is the hardest one to climb. And
I've seen that you have done so many legal experiences, not just legal experience, but other experiences. It can be part time or through different projects that you have been, and and you have been in the like one of the like few persons that have got good grades in your first second year, right? So how did you manage that like balance between work experience and studying?
I'm a hard worker, and I think a fair few of my friends and people that know me would probably testify to this
Hmm.
statement. Uh, it's a lot of sacrifice, really, because yes, I've got a lot of of experience. So if like you can go on my LinkedIn profile and you
Yeah.
can view it there. But behind all that experience, there's a lot more preparation that goes into that.
Yeah.
It's attending the different events, it's preparing, researching. It's just a lot of time
Hmm.
balancing that with a law degree. Certainly not an easy job. And then I've got my other
Hmm.
extracurriculars on top,
Yeah.
uh, and it's just I guess making personal sacrifices. When I
Hmm.
don't have much free time, if I have to be candid, but that's the choice I've made. I enjoy the things I do,
Hmm.
so they give me the boost. And let's say, for example, I see a lot of my classmates, they go out on weekends, etc. I don't, because I purely haven't got the timing. I've got a very it can be repetitive,
Yeah.
uh, and sometimes even monotonous
So do you
lifestyle.
think
But
it's worth it that you leave so much of other things and mostly focus on the career side or academic side?
I mean, like I said, I'm a hard worker, and I think that's sort of genetic, really. My
Hmm.
family, uh, everybody in my family is a really are all diligent people,
Yeah.
and are very conscientious, and I think that's sort of just transferred naturally to me. And
Hmm.
like I said, I like the things I do. Let's say, even though they may not leave me with a lot of spare time, when
Hmm.
I get to meet so many people, and I've built a very good network of contacts,
Yeah.
and I've had so cool, so many unique and interesting moments.
Hmm.
So I think it's worth it. There's a lot of competition. You
Yeah.
really have to sort of be on the top of your game to get in. Law is a lucrative profession, and it certainly provides a good lifestyle. I mentioned that, but I think one thing that motivates me to go is the fact that law is I think the word would be pervasive. it's
Hmm.
it's all around us. I mean, we're on this call right now. If you happen to think that the amount of regulations that have been passed to set up teams and for us to be able to have this and have our data stored, it's inevitable that you have to deal with the law at one point or another in your life. So I think the fact that it's really it is what shapes, I think, the processes and structures of that are in place in our planet. I think
Hmm.
certainly requires people to be well aware of how the law works, and
Hmm.
one way to do that is to really just put the effort in. I've sort of profit the philosophy that whatever you put in
Yeah.
something, it'll come back to you in one shape or another. And let's say, let me give you statistics. I think in the UK, about 5-6 thousand training contracts are offered
Yeah.
each year,
Around
with
that.
30,000 applicants. For barristers, for
It's much
barrister
lower.
pupilages, it's even less. I've heard
Yeah.
it's 400 or 500 with about 3,000 applicants. So I think the
Hmm.
numbers speak for themselves. Uh, you want to have a good profile, and I think my profile sort of exemplifies who I am,
Hmm.
with all the activities. Because with me, I've got a lot of activities and sort of achievement experience in my profile, but I certainly pick and choose very carefully as to what to do,
Hmm.
because I think I want to get the benefit of it as well.
Yeah. So that's the one thing that me as a second year student have learned that. So like from my first year I was like I have to do different things, like, but coming to my second year I now realize that everything I do I need to have learned that benefits or the lessons that they want to teach me that I can show like in the next time, right? So that's what you mentioned, that that's
I
really
mean,
nice.
absolutely, and I fully echo that. I think, let's say when I was applying for solicitor apprenticeships, I didn't get
Hmm.
any, but it was a great learning experience. And the fact that I was working with my law teacher, the fact that I was working with a fantastic careers leader,
Hmm.
so hi to you as well if you're watching, sir. Uh, and you get to learn from your mistakes, and that's why I had my fair share of ups and downs when I was
Yeah.
in year 13 with my failure to secure an apprenticeship, but that I sort of learned from my mistakes, went into my
Hmm.
first year, and really managed to turn things around.
Yeah.
It's about just sort of learning, reading, reflecting, and seeking ways to be better, and that's what I always do. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
I
Everyone
certainly am not.
learns.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And talking about your LinkedIn profile that you mentioned, like you have got a really impressive LinkedIn. So, firstly, like tell me how important it is to have one for a career like law, and how do you have like mastered the skill of LinkedIn, like managing LinkedIn and all of those stuff?
Oh, you know what? If you'd asked me that question probably 4 or 5 years ago, I
Hmm.
would have been completely unwilling to answer because I wasn't actually interested in LinkedIn initially. My
Hmm.
mom encouraged me to create a profile, and because initially, I didn't really have that much to insert into it anyway, so I wasn't active on it. But then it was near 12 when I sort of got back onto LinkedIn, updated my profile, and started connecting with solicitor apprentices.
Hmm.
So I I currently think I've got over 1,500 people on my LinkedIn. That's
Yeah,
from people who've
that's
contacted
impressive.
me, people I've contacted, people I've met at different
Hmm.
events, etc. And I've just gone to realize that it's so crucial to have a LinkedIn for a few reasons. Number one, uh, it's so LinkedIn, just to clarify, is a bit like Facebook, but it's business specific. So it's only
Yeah.
about business, about promoting opportunities and jobs. Um,
Hmm.
and that's a great way to for you to be headhunted and offered the
Hmm.
job. Now, LinkedIn is also, let's say, for instance, I literally just went onto my LinkedIn and I found a work placement advertisement for uh, by a law firm in Newcastle, and I applied and I secured that placement. I knew the firm was offering August work
Hmm.
experience in August, and I managed to secure one in February. So there you go. That's just an example of how really of
Fast
the
it is. Yeah.
spontaneity of opportunities that that can come so spontaneously. And LinkedIn also has a great deal of courses, certifications, and resources. So let's say my connections, they're mostly from obviously the legal sector. They share a lot of interesting things,
Hmm.
materials, guides, PDF handbooks, etc. And they're actually
Hmm.
fully sort of free and accessible. You can just download them, and it's just so
Yeah.
useful, really. Plus, not to mention that LinkedIn, because in a way it's structured like a CV, and if you keep it updated, you've got a backup of your CV, and if something happens and you lose it, you can just download it off LinkedIn. There's that
Hmm.
option. So I cannot really emphasize on how important it is for students to get get a proper account created,
Yeah.
watch different tutorials as to how to set it up. The Law Society, our Law Society recently had a link, sort of an online presence workshop I attended,
Hmm.
which is great. Sort of trying to attend such coaching and get on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
If you want to take a message from this podcast, is get on LinkedIn.
And I'd like to add one message here also for the viewers. So I'm someone that really doesn't want to post anything on LinkedIn, and I don't know why, but one thing that really helped me in LinkedIn was that getting a job. And as you mentioned, like you can just, if you see a job posted and then you just apply it, and it's simple. You just put your CV in and just two three buttons and you are in, right? And that's how I got a job. But yeah, I haven't still posted anything about personally, like what I've achieved or not. But I guess from this video I have also personally inspired by this, and I'll also look into it.
Yeah, two things really. I agree. LinkedIn is convenient if you want to apply for a job because some law firms, they there's
Hmm.
the option to directly source uh,
Yeah.
your personal details and really information from there. And trust me, that saves a lot of time.
Hmm.
And in terms of posting, listen, you don't have to post there every day or every hour.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say that in general I post a lot on my social media, be it LinkedIn or not. uh, what let's say if there's something interesting, I'll share it, or I'll let's say share an achievement of mine, or or just post about an event I've attended.
Yeah.
I think it's important to keep, and I probably know that next point may provoke this point of discussion. Keep it
It's fine.
professional. I've seen a lot of
Yeah.
unprofessional posts on LinkedIn. It's great that I open my LinkedIn and I see your cat or whatever, but that's LinkedIn. I don't need to see your cat or dog. So just keep it professional.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other social media platforms that can be more relaxed,
Hmm.
but let's keep LinkedIn job orientated, and
Yeah.
build a community of aspiring people that want to provide opportunities to each other.
Agree. So as you mentioned, like getting legal experience can be like tough firstly, and as you have gained so many legal experience and been to so many open days, inside days, and so many work placements, right? So do you recommend doing as much as you have did for the law students, or like do you recommend doing few but the best ones?
It's an individual preference. Like I said, everybody it really is in charge of crafting their own destiny in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, I don't have much free time, and but with me, I'd much rather go to an open day than go and have a meal outside or whatever, because I'll
Yeah.
much that I'll make a lot more. I'll take a lot more from that open day than from anything else, and that's my philosophy. I enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I said I'm a
Mm-hmm.
hard worker, and I think that there's so many law firms there. If I remember correctly, there were 10,400 and was it seven law firms in the UK? A lot of
All
firms,
right.
right?
So
Uh,
many.
and you want to get a very good exposure to, I think, as many of them, because you want to narrow down your
Hmm.
choices. Let's say you attend an X number of events, let's say 10 events, and you think, okay, I've been to international law firms, I've been to small practices, I've been to regional mid-sized practices. I didn't like the small ones, but I'm open to the other two. Or let's say, oh, don't like international law firms. I actually may want to stick to something, a bit more compact.
Hmm.
And or let's say I've done, let's say, immigration law. I didn't like it, but on the other hand, enjoyed competition law, etc. So it's about really
Yeah.
exploring and sort of narrowing down your choices. And academia, your academic subjects can also help you do that. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think there's a
It's more
very
about
fine,
practical experience.
definitely, there's a fine line between academia and what happens in practice. So
Hmm.
I personally, I think so. I've attended a lot of events. I've probably attended about 40 events. That's excluding open days and insight evenings. I think I've done
Hmm.
17 of these, if
Hmm.
I am not mistaken. And they've been with firms of different sizes in different regions,
Yeah.
and with different specialisms. Like I said, it's your choice. I've seen
Mhm.
trainees who've, let's say, done 4 or 5 open days. I've seen trainees who've done placements but
Yeah.
without open days. So
Hmm.
there are a lot of them. So you have to
It's about
go
all about person choices that they have.
personal choices, and they're not very hard to get onto, because they're
Hmm.
usually it's just a written application of a
Yeah.
single question and your personal details. So
Mm.
and then you get
Not so
to
hard.
spend a day in the firm and really gain a very personalized insight, because a lot of the information they will
Hmm.
provide you with uh, during open days and insight evenings is not publicly accessible, so it's
Yeah.
confidential information, and if you know it, you can definitely make your application stand out.
You have so many experiences, right? And out of those, what stand it the most for you, and in terms of more learning and practical experiences?
To that question, I'll answer in the following way. I think it's very tough for me to pick one example, because
Hmm.
the placements and the internships, work experience placements, and inside schemes I've been part of, they differ, and the criteria
Mm.
for difference, I think, is the following. First, is the type of program. So
Yeah.
an inside scheme would be 2, 3, 4 days, whereas
Mm.
a work placement, it can be a week, a couple of weeks, or a few months, right?
Mm.
So you can't really compare the two because, first of all, of the duration.
Yeah.
Second of all, of the amount of participants there are. I've
Mm.
been, uh, let's say, I've been in an inside, I was part of an inside scheme which had
Mm.
110 participants,
Mm.
if not more. Now, these were all competitively selected, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been to other inside schemes, let's say another inside scheme that had 12. So
Mm.
the number of participants also would influence your experience.
Mm.
Uh, and then lastly, just to point out, I think the different types of programs have different purposes. The inside schemes being of a duration of
Mm.
2 or 3 days, the idea is that you get to meet, the idea is that you get to meet a lot of people, be part of different sessions, let's say
Mm.
presentations about the firm, different exercises you can partake in, and
Mm.
different training sessions. That's different from, let's say, a work experience placement, let's say of 1 week, where you can rotate across the department every day and actually either do case studies that will
Mm.
pretty much take you to complete throughout the whole day, or actually do billable work and assist
Mm.
trainees, associates, partners, etc. And that's why I cannot pick a single opportunity. I'll tell you about what I liked about the different placements. So let's say my very first inside scheme was with a top 20 law firm called Bird and Bird. That
Mm.
was because that was in January of 2022, so just after the pandemic sort of
Yeah.
began to sort of slow down. It was it was virtual, but it was really interesting
Mm.
because it was my first one. Uh,
All right.
they introduced us to some great specialisms in intellectual property, media, sports,
Mm.
and that was just very exciting. Um, and it was virtual, so in the same format as this podcast is. So it's a bit different to going to an in-person work experience, which I did in February, let's say, of 2022, when I went to Newcastle for work experience placement at Muckle LLP, which is a regional practice.
Oh.
And that was a different experience in itself because, first of all, I went to Newcastle. I'd never been to Newcastle before,
Yeah.
so obviously, from a bit of a tourist
Yeah.
perspective, it was nice seeing the city, but also because I hadn't really done proper work in law firm. And there, Muckle, I did a fair few case studies, but I also assisted uh, different legal personnel in their tasks. So that was a different experience. Compare that to the inside schemes I did with Baker Mckenzie, DLA Piper, and
Yeah.
White and Case. There were pretty much the DLA Piper scheme was 3 days. The others were 2 days. But let's say Baker Mckenzie was the first time I went to the city of London. I mean, I'd previously been to London
Mm.
a few times as a tourist, but I'd never been
That's
to the
nice.
so-called city law firm. So that was a
Mm-hmm.
great insight. And we were like there, we were only 12 people. There were 12 of us, so it was
Mm.
really personalized.
Yeah.
And then I also got to do some trainee shadowing on some cross-border work, which was really interesting. Let's say on the DLA Piper scheme, it was again a different experience because, like I said, the number of participants was was 3 digits really, and because there were so many people, you have to get used to first of all working in larger teams, which was a very beneficial experience in one of
Mm.
the workshops we had. And again, a different insight, and plus it was great for your network of connections. You get
Yeah.
110 students to connect with, and God knows how many people came and spoke to us, and they were very, very
Yeah.
sort of prominent lawyers. And let's say when I went to White in Case, I had sort of 2 half days of training shadowing, so that was again different, and I got to experience two different contentious departments. So two contentious means litigious. So again, it's different. I've been to let's say in June 2022. I did quite a few work placements then. Uh, I I did the placement at Black Solicitors, which is a
Mm.
local Leeds law firm, and I didn't do any case studies there. It was
Hmm.
the majority of it was really
Interesting.
proper client work, and it was really fun. I got to draft a publication that got posted. I
Hmm.
got to sit on on employment hearing. So again, new
New
experiences,
experience.
and uh, and I mean, I can go on. Let's say I've been to Kingsley Napley in London, so that was it's a London law firm, but it wouldn't be classified as let's say a global law firm as Baker
Hmm.
McKenzie, DLA, and White and K. So it was again seeing a different perspective in a firm that combines both
Yeah.
criminal, family, and sort of private client services with commercial ones. I think with city law firms, either take the one niche of the market or the other. So it would either be personal services or commercial ones. So it was interesting to see how that firm uh, combined the two. Then I went to Walker Morris in Leeds, which is one of the big six law firms, and
Yeah.
it was great because I got to, in addition to my experience at Black Solicitors, I got to gain a better perception of the Leeds market and really sort of the market in West Yorkshire. And I then during the summer went to Bulgaria, right?
Hmm.
And I went there. I interned at a law firm called Kinstellar, which is one of the few international law firms in Bulgaria. That was again a complete different experience because it was 2 weeks. It was my longest placement.
Hmm.
Plus, it was in a jurisdiction. Even though I'm Bulgarian, because of my academic background, because of the fact that I pretty much my work experience has been gained in in England.
Hmm.
I've got limited knowledge on the Bulgarian system, so that
Yeah.
was a challenge in itself that you had to cope with, and it was a challenge that I managed to deal with well. Then let's say if it was in September, I went to Freshfields Bruckhaus Deringer.
Yeah.
That was again a different placement because it was really busy because we had a lot of talks. I got to meet a lot of people.
Hmm.
It was an exclusive placement for our university, which was
Yeah.
great, and we also had a lot of different sort of case studies. And again, that
It's all
Freshfields is one of
different in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's one of the five magic circle law firms.
Yeah.
So again, I think that sort
But
of
if you
goes.
have to choose a firm, especially I can sense it like you like to be challenged intellectually. So out of those experiences that you have, could you just name like one or two firms that you have been experiencing that,
Intellectual challenges. Well,
especially where you have learned more as a like in the legal field or as like that?
well, it's very hard, like I said,
Yeah.
because of the factors. But let's say when I went to Kinstellar, I learned. I did some work on, anti-money laundering. Let's say,
Hmm.
which on sort of anti-money laundering regulations, which was something I hadn't previously done before, and that's
Hmm.
and sort of cryptocurrencies and anti-money laundering. So
Hmm.
that was a very, the connection, the way these two things click together was, I found it really interesting. But
Wow.
let's say here in the UK,
Hmm.
I mean, the first time I went to Baker Mckenzie because that was my first proper insight into the proper big London city law firms was a truly an unforgettable moment.
Yeah.
Uh, then I've enjoyed every placement I've been a part of. Like I illustrated, there are so
Yeah.
many insights and things to take from each scheme, and that's why I think it's important to do a good number of them because you get to build on
Yeah.
uh, your sort of knowledge really and get to apply it.
I get it. You don't want to offend any firm, so so we'll move on. Uh, so what is that important thing to secure so many opportunities? Like, is it your grades or is it other part-time things or what is it? Is it your passion or what is it?
It's a collection of all of these, I think.
All right.
So academia is very important, and there will be certain minimal requirements you have to get. Uh,
Mhm.
Obviously, just because I told you I'm a naturally hardworking person now, and I'm a bit of a perfectionist myself, and I would always aim for the top. I think you sort of have to really be on the top of your game to be absolutely certain that you've done everything that you can.
Mm-hmm.
and that you're in just in the hands of recruiters from that
Yeah.
point onwards. I think that with the academia it's pretty straightforward because really everybody in one
Mm-hmm.
to one extent or another will have the qualifications. So I think it's about the experience you have, be it legal or non-legal work experience.
Yeah.
I think both of them are valuable. Let's say I've got some non-legal work experience. I work as a subwarden in my university accommodation hall,
Yeah.
so that's taught me a few skills in terms of client service, in terms of
Mm-hmm.
people management and conflict
Yeah.
resolution that I perhaps didn't experience during my legal work placements. But again, the legal work placements are, I think, the for me, I think I would prefer that I had a lot of legal work experience because it's pretty much directly applicable to the profession you want to enter, and the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge is just more, it's
It's
invaluable.
transferable.
It's
Yeah.
invaluable. And in terms of passions and interests, I think they're very important because you can sort of convert them into achievements.
Yeah.
Let's say I enjoy writing, and I've had a couple of third prizes in national essay writing competitions in
Mm.
Bulgaria. I've let's say in terms of passions and sort of free time activities during when I was back at Wyndham College, I was part of a team that entered the bar mock trial competition, and we reached the
Mm.
national final. So it's a good thing to really sort of hone. Like if you've got passions, see if what make the most out of them. Let's say
Mm.
if you've got an entrepreneurial mindset, and if you start a business, so that's great. I've got connections, from our university on LinkedIn who are my fellow students, but let's say they've got smaller companies, etc., businesses. So uh, that's a great way, because law, as much as
Yeah.
it's law, it's a lot about business if you want to go into
Mm-hmm.
commercial law firms.
It's all about people.
Exactly, and you have to be
Yeah.
able to converse with people and service people as well.
Yeah.
So, and then of course your extracurricular activities will matter a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if you want to go down the barrister route, right? You'll have to do a lot of mooting, negotiating, debating, and that's where
Mm-hmm.
different competitions
Mm-hmm.
organized by our law society come in. Then you can have different positions of responsibility. I've represented three brands in my life, two law firms, and one was an education consulting company. I've
Mm.
I've been part of the Law Society Career Subcommittee.
Yeah.
I've got my own website, which I maintained very actively during when I was still an A-level student. So you can do pro bono work as well. Uh,
Yeah.
so that
A lot
just
of different opportunities.
it's
And
better to have a taste of everything. And if you think
yeah.
it's not for me, don't do it. But I
Yeah.
think it's better to have a
Better
taste of
to do
everything.
it than you know that if you like it or not.
Yeah, and they develop different skills. I talked about
Yeah.
my part-time job, let's say, with the pro bono work I did, because uh, I think it develops your emotional intelligence quite a lot in your drafting skills because you
Mm-hmm.
have to produce written submissions.
Yeah.
Uh, and let's say I was part of the law society career subcommittee I mentioned. That was
Yeah.
very good because of developing your presentation skills, interpersonal
Mm-hmm.
skills, and sort of preparation really. Because I was in
Yeah.
charge of preparing an event, so
Mm-hmm. So
there's
many ways.
so many ways really. And there's every all these activities they'll give you something. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it may be repetitive. Let's say when I've been to law firms, I've done let's say employment law. I've been placed in a lot of employment law departments, which gets to I was able to build upon what I already knew and apply
Mm-hmm.
it. So it's a learning experience, and I
Yeah.
would totally encourage people if they can to go out and explore and make up their own minds. I think that's the only way to do it really.
Yeah. So would you say like that because you have done like as you mentioned like the employment law like a few times. So is that one of the reasons for yourself to choose that law or like do you always experiment with your seats?
No, no. So when I when I so my legal work experience, usually when I have a placement or a work experience placement, it's usually quite sort of the departments you would
Hmm.
be sitting in a sort of set in, quite very much set in stone. With inside schemes, let's say with Baker Mckenzie and White
Hmm.
and Case, I was able to give preferences. And let's say White
Right.
and Case very well accommodated my preferences, and I got my second and sixth choice of seats. And there were a
Hmm.
lot of seats, so I was happy. Let's say one of them was contentious construction, my second choice seat, and I got I had an absolutely amazing half day shadowing the trainee solicitor on a
Yeah.
very large deal involved
Mm.
in the region of pretty much the Panama Canal. It's like you can go and read about it online, but it was a different thing. I'd never done
All right.
construction before or construction.
So it
Uh,
was just instinctive that you wanted to like explore it and you did it.
yeah, explore and narrow down. Let's say
Hmm.
I said I wasn't a fan of real estate.
Hmm.
Real estate is a very big practice in a lot of law firms, but I didn't like it. Obviously, I've not really had months or weeks and weeks or months and months of exposure, but
Mm.
it's just not, I've not clicked with that department. I've enjoyed
Mm.
commercial law, the commercial departments, uh, on the other hand, and I've also found the regulatory departments quite interesting as well.
Yeah. All right. That's a good insight about that. Moving on. Like you have mentioned this already that you haven't received a training contract. Like you haven't accepted a training contract yet. But are there firms like trying to get a training contract with you?
Well, I'm in the process of applying, and I'm waiting to hear back from law firms. Training contracts, they or like because in the UK, sort of in the UK, you can get a training contract either by directly applying for it,
Hmm.
or through a vacation scheme, which is basically a fancy word for a two,
Yeah.
3 week work
Yeah.
placement.
So which
And
process are you applying with, like the vacation schemes or the direct training contract?
so I personally am applying for vacation schemes. I think
Hmm.
it's best to go and see what the actual firm is like.
Yeah.
Like I said, let's say I didn't like real estate, or didn't find it that interesting, but I've only been in real estate for a very few days.
Hmm.
So if I go to, let's say my preference of real estate can change in the future, and it's the same thing with law firms. I want to see what the law firm's like for 2 3 weeks, and that will help me make my mind up.
Yeah.
It allows you, first of all, you gain experience, right?
Hmm.
Second of all,
You narrow
you,
down.
you get to make a more informed decision, and it's really important, that's potentially life, a career defining decision. So you
Yeah.
want to make an informed decision, certainly.
Yeah. Like for the first few months in my like first year, I was like every week I changed my preference. Like, should I go to the solicitor route or the bar route? So it can be sometimes challenging when you don't have experience to like in your hand to decide. So it's good to have like a lot of experience going on.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, with me personally, I found it easy to definitely sort of
Hmm.
create my streamline and
Yeah.
know what to do in order to sort of fit within that line. And uh,
Yeah. I
with you,
agree.
let's say if you've got doubts, just let's say with the bar route, there are other things you can do, because I think if you are a barrister, that definitely involves a more detailed exploration of the law. Or you could become a research assistant or intern for in the law
Mm-hmm.
commission to see if you actually enjoy
Yeah.
exploring law and constructing arguments that involve, where the law is so deeply embedded.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. I just had one more thing that I had to say. So, for example, when I was in my first year, I was really enjoying the research process, and
mhm.
as you mentioned, like choosing that thing, like it can be different thing, research or other, uh, like intern, right? So it gives you a different type of motivation. Like you can go to the CPS and work like more into like like why should we have that law? So much more in like should we need it or not? More in
Yeah, law
aspect of
law
that.
reform. Yeah.
Yeah, law reform. So that's one of the
Yes,
things that
exactly.
you can explore through academics purpose. but there
exactly.
are other ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
All right.
like you mentioned, we have research assistant vacancies, which are paid
Mm-hmm.
in the School of Law.
Mm-hmm.
They're competitive,
Yeah.
and you basically get to assist academicians in their work. And we've had
Yeah.
a whole variety of them. In all honesty, criminal
Yeah.
law I've seen jurisprudence, I've seen competition law vacancies, EU law vacancies,
Mm-hmm.
international law. That I think it's it's recommended and that one has a shot at them, and if 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 it works out, I think it's a great
It's
experience.
a good experience. Yeah. Agree. Um, so, what is especially like the future goals for yourself? As you've been second year right now, and you'll be going to your third within a couple of months. So, what's your particular aim right now? Is it to
Well,
like gaining more legal experience, or like gain like focusing on more of studies and academics, or like that?
both. I like having
Yeah.
things on my plate, and I
Yeah.
don't like staying inactive. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, getting a good law degree,
Yeah.
hopefully a first class law degree,
Mm-hmm.
is obviously one of my main goals. And I think with the league world, and especially sort of early careers recruitment, a lot of things can change, and it's very dynamic depending on whether you get offers or rejections, and that sort of prompts you to think your plan, to sort of revisit your plans. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say, obviously, academia is my main thing at the minute. I'd like to get work experience, whether that
Mm-hmm.
happens through a vacation scheme or a training contract, or whether I find other placements in law firms or
Yeah.
state establishments, or just other entities really, will determine, let's say, whether I'll enter a law firm sooner or later, or whether I'll
Mm-hmm.
go, or for example, do a master's,
Yeah.
or there's such an
So
abundance
many
of
ways.
options, and that's I've spoken to so many people, let's say partners in law firms, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of thing they tell me is when I was at sort of the stage you are right now, I wish I had all these opportunities, because
Mm-hmm.
think about it. Okay, if plan A doesn't work out, you go
Yeah.
to plan B. I mean, and then C, D, etc. You have to remember that the alphabet's more than what one letter, and you have to
Mm.
go down and explore all your options. I mean, you can
Yeah.
go and intern in the Ministry of Justice, or you can do a master's.
Mm.
You can go and do a research placement. We have paid research placements for longer periods, let's say during the summer. You can go on paralegal or work
Mm-hmm.
as a legal assistant. Uh, or just go abroad and do another type of job, let's say teaching. I have a lot of friends who did that, and you have to know what I think. Just sort of I really want to underline that if you've got your objectives clear,
Yeah.
I think there are a variety of ways to achieve them, and in line with what happens, and let's say how your applications unfold, or whatever, I think you'll be able to sort of switch to your other options quickly in order to get back on tracks,
Mm-hmm.
in order to get back on the
Agree.
tracks that lead you to that main goal.
Mm.
So,
Yeah, I agree that. But if you have given the choice, right? As like I'm not sure, but if you have the choice of getting a training contract, for example, and you have the opportunity to go and pursue your masters, or for example, say other things. So what will you choose as a as like completing your law degree after completing
oh,
it?
tough question. Again, it depends on the circumstances. Some law firms, let's say uh, so currently we're recording this interview
Yeah.
in March 2023. Because law firms recruit 2 years in advance,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the earliest at this stage, and law firms recruit sort of penultimate year students and above. So the
Mm-hmm.
earliest stage I can enter a law firm is in 2025,
Next
September
year. Yeah.
2025. So if I get a September 2025 training contract, I would next year I'll go do my final year of university, then I'll do the SQ, and then I'll go into the legal market.
Mm-hmm.
But some law firms you can defer by a year, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. Some offer
Yeah.
some are more flexible. If they've
Could you
got bigger
name them?
training, yeah, if they've got bigger training intakes.
Yeah.
With law firms with smaller intakes out, my
Mm-hmm.
presumption would be that you won't be able to defer. But let's say uh, some of the law firms I've spoken to, they've told me, "Oh, okay, I mean, if you want to apply for 2025 training contract, and you can apply for a master's, and if you get a master's place, we'll be happy to let you defer." So it's
Mm-hmm.
just about, like I said, it's about really communications from law firms
Mm-hmm.
um, during the application cycle, which
Yeah.
is from September until August, are really what sort of really shape my timetable the most.
Mm-hmm.
So I told you I'm waiting to hear back from them. The
Mm-hmm.
process, they
Yeah.
can be long, given the fact that you start applying in September, even as
Uh,
early as August, to be fair,
yeah.
and then you may not be able to hear back from them in the next 3 months, for instance, or 4 months,
Yeah.
and then they get an invitation for an interview, and then some more time will lapse until you get to hear back. So it's just you have to be able to react at sort of as time goes, and you have to
Yeah.
be a bit flexible.
Sure. Not many people in our law school have that kind of experience that you have, right? So, what one advice that you'd like to give a first year student and a second and a third year student?
So I started from scratch really, and it's
Mm-hmm.
about, let's say when I started, I didn't have the work experience, but I had done well in SE competitions.
Mm-hmm.
I'd completed a lot of courses. I'd completed had a lot of extracurricular. My extracurriculars profile was strong, and that's what enabled me to get onto those initial programs, I think. And having positions of responsibility
Yeah.
is one way that will definitely aid you in securing your initial placements in schemes. And once you sort of get, because the thing is, the first step of the ladder is the hardest one to climb. And trust me, and I'm not speaking from experience, once you get onto that first step of the ladder, it becomes easier because law firms would have already recognized you, you would have had some experience, you're able to apply it, and it gives you
Mm-hmm.
more context, and it sort of contextualizes your application, and then it's just easier to build upon. Because let's say when I got the Bird and Bird Insight scheme, right, that was my first ever one. I then did from January to April of 2022, I did pro bono work, and then
Mm-hmm.
I did another first year workshop with Reynolds Porter Chamberlain, which was one day, and it was insurance focused. And then I did Muckle LLP. So four things, entered my CV in what
Mm-hmm.
a couple of months really,
Yeah.
and that, I think that just illustrates that once you get on that train, moving down the tracks is easy. Then
Mm-hmm.
in May and April, I went to Baker Mckenzie, DLA Piper White in case, and then just progressively built.
Just started.
June, I went to Kingsley Napley, Blacks,
No.
Solicitors, and Walker Morris, and it's really once you get in the legal, once you get the initial experience, it becomes so much easier.
Mm-hmm. All
And
right.
by the way, just
Yeah.
final point, and go to open days because they also, a lot of law firms would
Yeah.
also count them as work experience. And if you get on a few open days, 5, 6, 7 open days, well,
Mm-hmm.
that's the equivalent of a week of work experience in a way.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
don't underestimate them.
Yeah. Uh, it's all. So it's a tip for the first year students or like any law student here.
So with first year students, I think it's very important to realize your first year at university is really important for a few
Mm.
reasons. Your grades, they don't count towards your final awarded mark. So
Yeah.
let's say if you'd want to get at least a 2 point, you know, one in your as your grade, because these are the grade requirements that you'll need
Mm-hmm.
to apply for vacation schemes in your second year or afterwards. And I
Mm-hmm.
think I got a lot of my experience in my first year. So I managed to sort of balance it really well with my studies, and that's helped me a lot in my vacation scheme applications because I've had a lot to talk about. And I think it's really the same thing would apply to third year students and those in uh, past past their third year.
Yeah.
Uh, the summer is a great time to be utilized. There are great placements. Let's say one has just been advertised by the Ministry of Justice, a 12-week summer
Yeah.
internship. or you could do, let's say, first year students, for instance, they can participate in the Laidlaw research program
Yeah.
that's offered to them and research during the summer and get paid, if for a fact. And or you can do other student research placements. So or just work, have a summer job, because like I
Hmm.
said, no law experience is valued by recruiters as well.
Yeah.
And you have to know pretty much when the periods are to get experience. I think the periods are the summer, because here in Leeds, in exams finish in May, and then you have, I mean, most accommodations, accommodation hall contracts expiring, let's say July. So you
Hmm.
have at least 1 month, especially if you're an international student, that you'll be in the UK. Or use that time to live in your accommodation you've already paid for and get law experience with
Yeah.
firms in the area. So that's sort of, I think,
It's
how
all
I
about
view it.
mentality that you have to do it.
It's about planning, and like I said, it's about having that overarching goal of yours
Yeah.
and just planning on what you'll do, what will happen if your initial plans fail. And like I said, there are so many opportunities. With me, purely because of time constraints, I could have done so much more, but it's either things overlap, or
Hmm. Yeah.
I won't be here in Leeds to be able to participate in the programs. And sometimes you feel, I really would have wanted to apply,
Yeah.
but can't. So there are opportunities, just, there's a lot to pick and choose from.
Yeah. Agree. This will be my last question for this segment. You have been to a lot of app interviews and done a lot of applications, right? So just briefly, could you mention like some of the key points for applications and interview?
Well, interviews, they differ. So you have a few types of difference, of interviews, pardon me. The first one, uh, general questions such as why career in law, why this law firm, why commercial law, or why another area of law, maybe why you've, uh, have considered any other career choices, and why you've sort of sort of reject them or place them
Yeah.
in secondary consideration. So you have to be able to answer to respond to these, and you basically it's easy to prepare for them because they're standard questions, and you can sort of have responses in the back of your mind. And there are other questions which are called competency questions. Firms, they would test the firms would usually tell you on their websites, we look for people that are bright, innovative, creative,
Yeah.
etc. Team players with attention to detail, etc. So uh,
Hmm.
look at their competences, and they'll probably ask you about different situations in which you would have demonstrate these
Yeah.
competences specific to them, and they would want to extract the information, let's say in the form of asking you, well, tell me about a time you've had to overcome a challenge, or tell me about a time you've had to work in a team, or tell me about a time that you've taken on feedback or criticism. So that these are competency questions. Then you have situation based questions,
Hmm.
which basically you can't really prepare for them that much, because
Yeah.
the firms, they would just create them. And I mean, you can practice. There are
Hmm.
certain websites where people have shared their interview experiences. You can see if they've given any sample situations there, and you can
Yeah.
practice answering them. But for example, it would be, you're a trainee solicitor in X department. Uh, a partner has asked you to help them with that task, but you've got conflicting deadlines, etc., etc. How would you respond and react? So
Hmm.
I think that's for these types of questions, you have to know the support, how the firm operates, what sort of support structures you have during your training contract, and
Hmm.
what your pretty much your training contract or placement scheme is like, so that you can respond, accordingly to them. And then
Yeah.
you also have commercial awareness questions. The commercial awareness is pretty much is defined in the most simple way as a market understanding that the lawyers take into account when advising their service. So it's really the business context, but it's more than that, in my opinion. It's about making intellectual speculations. It's about
Hmm.
being innovative, because if you understand the market, you will also be able to find those tiny gaps in it that need brushing up. So that's where it can be innovative, for example. And these questions would usually ask you to discuss trends, recent business news, and major commercial headlines, and how they impact the legal industry, a law firm, or its clients. And that's pretty much it. And you may get follow-up questions on them because they would want to test your business acumen, business
Yeah.
knowledge. So.
And how do you develop those, like the business acumen and the like commercial awareness? Like there are a lot of like events and uh, workshops going around that, but individually, what that person can do to improve their skills?
So the good thing is that similar to the amount of opportunities I spoke about, there's so many. There's really a whole diversity of sources that you
Yeah.
could use to upskill your commercial
Mm-hmm.
knowledge. The most pretty much really what is a must is that you should go to reputable news sources such as the Financial Times, The Economist, The
Mm-hmm.
Guardian Times, the New York Times. Uh, I think the Morning Herald, etc., and
Yeah.
really read business news there and analyze them. So ask yourself questions. Why? Why is that being said? What will that? What effect will that have? Who's the person saying it?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is the what context are they taking into account when making this statement or whatever?
Yeah.
And a lot of them, especially the Financial Times, they've got a lot of news articles which have a lot data in them. So it's a good way to learn to analyze
Mm-hmm.
data and tables and information, numerical information.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's one way to do so. The other way is to go onto different websites. And just a disclaimer from me: I'm not making any sort of promotions. I'm just
Yeah.
telling you what I use. This podcast is most certainly not sponsored by anybody.
Yeah.
But if you go on to there's one website called Commercial Awareness for Students. They provide you with the weekly wrap-ups of the key business themes during
Mm-hmm.
that week. There's another website called Zip Law,
Mm-hmm.
which is very good as well. They discuss different uh, commercial trends and how they impact law firms. Then there are specialist blogs as well for different practice areas. Let's say for intellectual property law, you can go to I think it's called the IP Cat, but cat is spelled Kat, so not a cat like the animal, but in a different
Mm-hmm.
way. Or you can go if you're interested in tax law, you can go. There's a blog run by a gentleman called Dan Needle. He's a
Mm-hmm.
former partner. He was a former partner at Clifford Chance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, you can just sort of look at the different, sort of trends within niche practice areas.
Yeah.
Another way to do so is to go on social media because social media is really big. So pretty much all of these, pretty much nearly all of them, all of the sources I just mentioned would have a social media page, and
Yeah.
there they would present um, pretty much information that's presented very succinctly.
Mm.
So and I think that's great because let's say when I go onto my Instagram uh, and I follow, let's say, Simple Politics is a great one, or Commercial Bites,
Mm.
and they'll provide you with three or four sentences.
Yeah.
Sentences about what's happened, but that may trigger your interest, and you can go and look up the matter in your own time. At, at the University of Leeds, we have a Commercial Awareness Society,
Mm-hmm.
which pretty much do the exact same thing. They run a page really well in
Yeah.
terms of what's going on. It's interactive, and I enjoy reading their content.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's about going to different events as well. So the Legal Cheek, Law Careers Net, they organize different events, talks, presentations, networking events, etc., and just meeting people, asking them, absolutely bombarding them with questions and
Yeah.
extracting every single little, the tiniest of details that are there, and that's how you learn. And then I think pretty much and of course, yeah, work experience. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the best way to really get um, an insight into how business and law are entwined.
Yeah. Can you give me a bit of experience, like when you have been to an interview and they've asked a question that relates to a commercial awareness? So anything
Oh
that.
yeah, they would ask me every time. With interviews now, you can have them in person, over the telephone, or you can
Mm-hmm.
have video interviews, which basically, uh,
Mm-hmm.
they take place in a similar format as this one. So I would have a pre-recorded. I'll be able, I would have a question set in advance. I would record myself answering it. I'll have one goal, and let's say uh, 30 seconds or a minute to plan, and 60
Yeah.
seconds or 90 or 120 seconds to answer.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would ask you. So really, so that means that what they're doing is they're testing your ability to, first of all, comprehend the case, or the business deal, or the commercial awareness issue, sieve out the important bits of that, and be able to sort of think about the consequences
Mm-hmm.
of it at the same time. Now, if the interview is over telephone or in person, then they're going to ask you follow-up questions, and that's really to get to see whether you can think on your feet,
Yeah.
and whether you can cope with the pressure, and sort of really be responsive to, let's say they may offer you, because the way they test commercial awareness is through case studies a lot. So they would usually drop a bomb, giving you information, and they want to see whether you're responsive to that.
Mm-hmm.
So the way to do that, you can practice case studies. There are some
Yeah.
platforms, uh, let's say the Commercial Law Academy, the Corporate Law Academy. They're paid. They have some
Mm-hmm.
free events. Let's say the Commercial Law Academy, they've got free monthly, pardon me, and yearly commercial awareness wrap-ups, where they go through the key events of the month of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that have happened across a whole variety of sectors of the economy, really. And they're run with a gentleman called Peter Watson, who's from Watson's Daily, which is another
Yeah.
sort of
Very
blog with
famous.
commercial awareness news. It's paid again,
Mm-hmm.
but it's reasonably, the price is reasonable. It's £5-6. So essentially, if you skip getting coffee from Starbucks from a day, you'll be able to afford it, really. And
Yeah.
I think that's how you do it. And then that's from obviously the business side. If you want to go more into like you spoke about law reform, you mentioned law reform, then you can just
Yeah.
go to your tutors, lecturers, seminar
Mm-hmm.
leaders. They have module support hours and academic support hours, and you can just discuss matters with them. Because a lot of
Yeah.
what I liked about Leeds was that we have a lot of former legal practitioners currently in academia. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say my contract law seminars in year one, by they were led by people who had practiced in some of the biggest law firms in the world there are
Yeah.
out there. And you can really engage in truthfully
Mm-hmm.
in truly intellectual conversations with them. So yeah, like I said, there are so many possibilities for you to build upon your commercial awareness. It's about doing it on a regular basis. 20-30 minutes a day on a regular basis would do you the world of good. If you have an
Mm-hmm.
interview, you can't develop all the commercial awareness an application and an analysis in a day or two. So
Yeah.
just do it consistently,
Yeah.
and
Um,
find which sources work best for you.
mm.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next one.